Hi everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going over questions 73 to 74 of ACER's Green booklet, which is also just called Practice Test. As always, send me an email, go to the website if you have any questions or need more help. Okay, so what I want you to do is don't get distracted by the detail. This is a very detail-orientated question. ACER loves throwing these at you. Don't get distracted by the detail. They're actually quite simple when you break it down. So 73 says employment of a fixed loop knot in preference to any other kind of knot is related most directly to. So all you really need to do is read the title or read the first line. So the first line says, this is an excellent method for producing a loop in heavy monofilament leaders for attaching lures. Now, I have never fished a day in my life. I do not know what a leader is. I do not know what a lure is, but I can pick that these are the two key words. It's a loop to attach leaders, in heavy something leaders for attaching lures. Okay. So if you look at the answer option, you can say A, the kind of lure used, or B, the kind of leader used. C and D are irrelevant, so it's either A or B. And then if we reread the question, it says employment of a fixed loop knot in preference to any kind of knot is related most directly to, what is it related most directly to? It's related to the leader used. And that is how you get the answer option B. And again, just to emphasize that it's talking specifically about, these heavy monofilament leaders for attaching lures. The emphasis is on the leader, not the lure, and that's how you get to answer option B. Okay, 74. In reference to the diagram, what do the parts labeled 1, 2, 3, and 4 represent? So a lot of students will try and do this like kind of where they go through step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, then try and figure it out. Um, I think that's the more tricky way to do it. The first thing you should ask is how can we differentiate all the options? So step 1, I think look at the very end, look at number 4, and you can say, what is number 4? And if you look at the answer options, A and B say that number 4 is the main line, whereas C and D say that number 4 is the tag. So the first thing we can say is number 4, is that the main line or is that the tag? And you should be able to see through step 3, it says wrap the main line on one side of the second loop together with the tag. So you can see that number 4 is the tag, right? And so that's how we can knock out A and B. And if you miss that in the text, you could also just look at the diagram and say, well, if it is the main line, like number 4 is the thing that's sort of going off into the distance. That doesn't quite make sense for it to be the main line. It sort of makes more sense for it to be the tag. Okay. And then diagram 4 says complete 3 or 4 wraps so that the tag protrudes from the second loop to form a water knot. So we have 2 loops, one loop here, and number 4 is coming through the loop. Therefore, that has to be the tag. So once you figured out that 4 is the tag, either through those 3 different methods that I spoke about, we've narrowed it down to C and D. So how do we split C and D? Well, the first thing that you can do is just have a look at the first options. So C, the first thing is a grinner, and D, the first thing is an overhand loop. So now you go back to the text and you say, is the first thing a grinner or is it an overhand loop? And step number 1 says tie a simple overhand knot in the leader. So we're told tie a simple overhand knot. And then if you just follow that knot through the pictures, you can see that that knot stays the same in the exact same position. And then that knot is labeled as 1. Okay, so diagram 1 sort of looks like this. Beep. This is the knot. And then if you follow this image through the 4 pictures, you can see that it stays the exact same. And then in diagram 4, it's labeled as 1. Therefore, Number one is an overhand loop, and then therefore the answer is D. Okay. So I think that's a much easier way of tackling it rather than trying to figure out what all four are by reading the instructions. And I hope you see that by doing this, it's very stepwise and it's very systematic. You're not looking at the text going, oh, I'm trying to figure out four things at once. You're looking at the text and saying, is the first thing that they do, is that a grinner or is that an overhand? It's an overhand. Okay, I'm going to check that with the images. Yes, that's the same. Good, tick, move on. So that's that sort of logical, critical thinking you need to be applying to these texts. So hopefully that all made sense, and I will see you in the next video.